Before we begin, I thought it would be fun if everyone lets me know in the comments where they're watching this video from. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's start today's episode. Donna Mako. In 1984, Donna Mako was staying with her family in New Jersey. At just 19 years old, she juggled two impressive jobs, working as a legal secretary during the week and pursuing her dream of becoming a professional model in her spare time. Donna was a striking blonde, the kind of person everyone wanted to be friends with, but her beauty never overshadowed her kindness. She lived on Cherrybrook Lane in East Windsor with her mother, Betty, stepfather Ronald, and younger sister Julie. Julie, who looked much like Donna, aspired to follow in her sister's footsteps one day. Her older sister, Toni, had recently moved out, leaving the Mako family not quite ready to let go of Donna. To offer her some privacy, her parents had allowed Donna to live in the basement, giving her a separate entrance and the freedom to come and go as she pleased. Unfortunately, this very setup would become a crucial detail in the tragedy that followed. On the night of February 26, 1984, everything seemed normal. Donna didn't have any special plans for the evening, though she did need to run an errand for work the following morning. 14-year-old Julie returned home to find her sister's car parked in the driveway, indicating that Donna was back. Julie was excited, eager to spend time with her older sister. Donna allowed her to stay in the basement, where they watched horror movies until the early hours of the morning. Around 2:45 a.m., Julie decided to call it a night and went upstairs to her room to sleep, leaving Donna to watch TV alone. Betty and her husband, Ronald, were already in bed, and Julie soon fell asleep herself. There was no sign of a struggle or any disturbance. Before I continue, I want to remind you that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Now, let's move on with the video. The next morning, Donna was missing from the breakfast table. Her family assumed she had left for her office job, which was scheduled for that day. It wasn't unusual for Donna to come and go without informing anyone, so they thought nothing of it. The day passed without incident, and as dinner time approached, they still hadn't heard from her. That is when Betty got seriously worried. It was not like Donna to be gone so long without telling her family. She never even stayed the night anywhere. She always had dinner with her family unless she had plans. Betty thought perhaps Donna had come home, and she missed it somehow. But as she descended the stairs to her daughter's basement room, she was surprised to see it was a mess. Donna was not there, but everything had been hurriedly tossed around. There were clear signs that there had been a struggle. Donna was a very organized, neat girl, so this was out of character. And that is when her eyes settled on a shocking sight in the corner of the room. It was a pile of bloody clothes. Betty immediately called the police, upset that she had not seen this detail sooner. After some time of searching, investigators recovered Donna's car a mile away from home. The black four-door '79 Chrysler was parked on the side of Millstone Road near the Cranberry border. All the doors were open, but even more shocking were the blood stains all over the car. From the upholstery to the ceiling, there was blood everywhere. Officers found her wallet, money, credit cards, and driver's license in the car. The blood from her room and blood from her car were sent for lab testing. A thorough analysis of her room revealed some clues. There was male DNA on some of Donna's clothes. It was obvious that a man had broken into her room and kidnapped her. There was the possibility of assault and the unthinkable. He might have taken Donna's life. The blood from the car and room belonged to Donna. Unfortunately, DNA technology was still in its initial stages, so there was not much to identify the perpetrator. There were no leads regarding Donna's whereabouts, and the case remained unsolved for months. The Mako family struggled with the uncertainty of her disappearance. As if the situation wasn't already painful enough, tragedy struck again 6 months later when Ronald, Donna's stepfather, passed away. This loss devastated Betty and Julie, making an already difficult time even harder. Toni, in an attempt to move on, got married in 1986, but the family's heartache continued. A year later, In 1987, Betty and Julie decided to move to Carrollton, Texas, in hopes of starting fresh. However, their attempt at a new beginning was plagued by more misfortune. They had placed all of Donna's belongings in a storage unit while they settled in, but it turned out to be a terrible decision. The storage unit was burglarized, and 16 boxes containing Donna's personal items were stolen. Mementos, photographs, precious memories were lost. This is a very interesting point because normally a burglar would not take photographs or files. Betty became grief-stricken after losing her husband and not knowing where her Donna was. In 1990, she passed away as well. Julie was 20 years old when her mother passed. As she took her last few breaths, Betty made Julie promise to never give up on Donna's case, to find her no matter what. A decade later, the sisters finally had an answer, not necessarily one they liked. On April 2, 1995, 11 years after Donna vanished without a trace, an unexpected discovery was made. A Boy Scouts troop commander, while leading an expedition, stumbled upon a partially dressed skeleton concealed in thick underbrush. The remains were wrapped in a carpet in a wooded area near a cranberry farm. It lay eerily close to the spot where Donna's car had been abandoned years ago. Authorities swiftly responded, and using dental records, they confirmed the remains were indeed those of Donna Mako. The medical examiner initially concluded that she had passed due to a gunshot wound to the head. But back at the lab, a more thorough examination revealed that it was blunt force trauma. Donna Mako's case went from a missing persons case to a slaying. Sadly, the only development in the case was a separate classification, and authorities at the time had no leads on who was responsible for Donna's death. Meanwhile, Julie gradually worked on rebuilding her life. She found love, got married, and had 3 children, all the while regularly checking in with the New Jersey police about her sister's case. Years passed, and in February 2013, tragedy struck again when Tony, now Tony Bartz, passed away. She was laid to rest in Little Elm, Texas, where she had spent her married life. Tony never learned who had so violently taken her sister's life. However, a decade later there was a glimmer of hope. In February 2022, nearly 40 years after the devastating events, authorities decided to reopen the investigation into Donna Mako's case. The first step was sending all the original evidence to the Central Regional Laboratory of the State Police in New Jersey for further analysis. This included DNA samples and fingerprints collected from the scene. In a remarkable breakthrough, the authorities announced in April 2023 that they had identified Nathaniel Harvey as the person responsible for taking the life of Donna Mako. Harvey, a man with a long history of criminal activity, had already passed away in prison. The crucial evidence came from the male DNA found in Donna's apartment during the initial investigation in 1984. This trace, which had no innocent reason to be there, ultimately led to the long-awaited resolution of the case. It was revealed that Harvey, who worked on the cranberry farm, who had been a person of interest initially, was the perpetrator all along. Officers at the time were unable to build a case against him as there was no DNA technology involved at the time. Harvey was arrested for a series of abuses many times over the years, but one thing that put him behind bars was a horrendous crime he committed in June of 1985. A 37-year-old widow named Irene Schnaps was found slain in the bedroom of her Plainsboro apartment. Her body was discovered by a coworker who, concerned after several days without contact, decided to check on her. Investigators concluded that Irene had been fatally struck on the head with a metal object. They found a bloody fingerprint on her pillow and a footprint on the floor, evidence that painted a grim picture of the crime. The lack of forced entry led the police to believe that Irene's attacker was someone she knew. This line of thinking directed their suspicion toward Peter, a neighbor known to have feelings for Irene. However, despite their initial focus on him, no substantial evidence was found linking Peter to the crime. He was eventually cleared as a suspect. Attention then shifted to Nathaniel Harvey, a notorious criminal known for breaking into homes and attacking women. During questioning, detectives noted that Harvey's shoe size matched the footprint found at the crime scene. Additionally, they discovered a Seiko watch belonging to Irene in Harvey's car. After 3 days of intense interrogation, Harvey confessed to taking her life. However, a critical error occurred. The confession was not recorded. Harvey later recanted his confession, claiming he was not involved in Irene's demise. Despite this, the evidence against Harvey was compelling enough to convict him. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for Irene's slaying. Harvey remained in prison from his arrest in 1985 until he passed away in February 2020 in Southwood State Prison despite multiple appeals. Julie Mako is now Julie Berger. She was 54 years old and a grandmother. She had also been an elected official who served on the council in the town of New Fairview, Texas. She was not expecting to find out the truth about her sister when she got that phone call from New Jersey police. Julie had stayed connected with people from East Windsor through the Heights Town High Memorial page on Facebook, hoping to help push her sister's investigation forward. She often found herself frustrated and angry at herself for not staying up with Donna that night. She wonders if things might have turned out differently if she had stayed. But deep down, Julie acknowledges that, as a child herself, she may have still ended up in danger. For years, the family sought help from trackers, private investigators, and even psychics, all in the hopes of uncovering what happened to their beloved Donna. Finally learning the truth provided some measure of closure for Julie. She will always remember the day when she and her husband went to retrieve Donna's remains, knowing that the investigation had come to an end. As she stood in solitude, a small ladybug landed on her arm. In that moment, Julie felt a deep sense of connection, believing that it was Donna reaching out, a sign that her sister was finally at peace. Moving on to the next case. Elsie Sigel. 20-year-old Elsie Sigel, the granddaughter of renowned military General Franz Sigel, was raised in a life of comfort and privilege. Coming from an upper-class family, her mother was involved in missionary work and taught a Chinese Sunday school class at St. Andrew's Church, located at 120 7th Street and 5th Avenue in New York City. Despite her father's objections, Elsie's mother began bringing her daughter to Chinatown, where they focused their outreach on helping women involved in drug use and sex work. During their work, the Sigel women met Leon Ling, a Chinese immigrant who also went by the name William. Ling was said to be well-educated, fluent in English, and both he and his roommate, Chan Sing, were considered to be Americanized and Christian converts. Initially, Ling accompanied Elsie and her mother for lunches and shopping outings, but over time, he and Elsie formed a closer bond. Eventually, Elsie began meeting Ling in secret without her mother's knowledge. She was last seen leaving her family's home on Wadsworth Avenue on June 9, 1909. 3 days later, her father received a telegram from Washington, D.C., reading, "I'll be home by the end of the week, don't worry." 1 week later, on June 19th, the police were contacted by the owner of a Chinese restaurant who expressed concern about his cousin, Leon Ling, who lived above the establishment on the top floor of an apartment building. The caller explained that he hadn't seen Leon in 6 days, his apartment door was locked, and repeated knocking and calls had gone unanswered. In response, a police officer was dispatched to conduct a welfare check. Upon entering the apartment, the officer found it nearly empty, furnished only with a bed and a large trunk tied with rope, seemingly prepared for shipping. When the trunk was opened, it revealed the body of a young woman. She was naked, wrapped in a bedsheet, and had been deceased for at least a week. A cord similar to the type used on window blinds was found wrapped tightly around her neck, indicating strangulation as the likely cause of death. Other than this, there were no visible signs of violence on the body. A thin gold chain with a bangle still hung around her neck, offering one of the few clues to her identity. The jewelry piece was inscribed with the letters. Additionally, another bracelet was found in the room, inscribed with the letters. It was then that Ling's cousin pointed out that his sweetheart was Elsie Sigel, and that he'd seen the couple at the theater together. The homicide unit was contacted about the body and investigators quickly got to work. Nobody had seen Ling or his roommates, Chun Sing, and the authorities felt that they were in some way involved with the murdered girl since they'd vanished at the same time. Upon speaking with the Sigel family, investigators were told that Elsie was not in fact missing. Her family then said that she was out of town. It's possible law enforcement were told this so the family could avoid a scandal. The family of American socialites Dorothy Arnold did the same thing when she vanished in 1910. Mr. Sigel was taken to view his daughter's body as well as the jewelry found with her. However, he was unable to identify with the bracelets or his daughter. Mrs. Sigel was then shown both and was able to positively identify them. Now armed with the identity of their victim, the police placed images of both Ling and Chong Sing in local and national newspapers. On June 20th, police were contacted by a man who'd hired a new cook for his establishment. He claimed that his new employee strongly resembled Sing's image. Sing was apparently going by the name R. Sing. Shortly after this phone call, police found Sing and brought him into custody where he admitted his true identity, but denied being involved with Elsie's death. Meanwhile, investigators continued to gather more background on Ling and his relationship with Elsie. They found out that prior to the 20-year-old's disappearance, Ling had spent some time living in the home she shared with her family. On June 1st, he called the police and explained that he had loaned Elsie $300, but there had been a misunderstanding about the repayment of the debt. However, he still had possessions at her family's home and requested that an officer accompany him so that no one would make a scene or think he was attempting to stir up trouble. An officer accompanied Ling to the property where he collected his things without incident. Shortly after Elsie's body was identified, her father came forward revealing that both Ling and a man named Chu Gain, who was the manager of the Port Arthur restaurant on Mott Street, were in love with his daughter. According to Mr. Sigel, on the evening of June 8th, the family had held a party which both men attended. Apparently, Ling had turned up drunk and he had pulled Elsie aside and told her that if she had anything to do with Gain, he would kill them both. Further corroborating this story, Gain admitted to police that he had been threatened by Ling. He then told authorities how on June 9th, Sing had come to him and said that if Gain provided Ling with enough money to fund his travel expenses, he would leave the city forever. Gain was over the moon as he obviously did not enjoy living with a death threat hanging over his head. He gave Sing all that he had, $260, after which Sing left, although he reportedly seemed agitated. After this confession, Gain was arrested pending further investigation, but was later released. Additionally, investigators uncovered a letter addressed to him in his room. It was from Elsie and was dated June 8th. It read as follows. My dear friend, I don't want you to feel badly because Willie was here tonight. You know that I love you and you only and always will. Don't mind Willie. Although he is nothing to me now, I had to see him last night. I did not send for him. Your ever-loving Elsie. Meanwhile, in Ling's room, authorities found a letter from the 20-year-old, although the date of it is unclear. In the notes, Elsie mentioned that she was writing the letter while her mother was not home as she would not let her write to him. She went on to say, quote, Don't think, Willie, that I will ever give you up. I will always remember the good times we have together. Please let me know if I can see you soon and how. With love, Elsie. Eventually, what is generally accepted as the truth came to light when Chong Sing finally decided to open up to the police. According to Sing, at 10:30 on the morning of June 9th, Elsie came to the apartment to see Ling and chastise him for his poor conduct at the party the previous night, and to tell him not to call her house anymore. Sing initially stayed downstairs while Elsie went up to see Ling, but eventually he too went upstairs where he heard a noise in one of the rooms. Peeking through a partially open door, he saw the couple struggling with one another. He told authorities, I saw blood on her face and I saw a handkerchief up to her mouth. He said that Ling then threw Elsie's motionless body onto the bed before he ripped off her clothing and wrapped her up in a sheet. Afterwards, he pulled the trunk from a cupboard. Seeing this, Sing commented to his flatmates that the whole incident was dirty work and that he was going away. Although it's not clear why, Sing gave Ling $200 of his own money and the $260 he extorted from Gain before leaving and moving in with his cousin. Following this confession, Sing was held as a material witness under a $10,000 bail. Around this time, investigators uncovered that it was Ling who had sent the telegram from Washington, D.C. to Elsie's father. They also found out that after the murder, Ling had spent some time trying to dispose of the trunk, passing it around to various businesses owned by Chinese friends and acquaintances. He reportedly wanted to leave it indefinitely at a specific restaurant, but the owner refused. So Ling had to return to the apartment with the trunk, where it was later discovered by police. Detectives theorized that Elsie's clothing was burned using the apartment stove. Eventually Chong Sing was released due to there being insufficient evidence to hold him. Newspapers in both the US and Canada published photos of Ling for months following the discovery of Elsie's body. In fact, her case stayed in the headlines for over 2 years, but despite law enforcement's intense search for him, Ling has never been located. Several news articles report that in 1910, the Secret Service found that Ling had made his way to Canada and then back to China, where he lived out the rest of his life on a farm. For many people, Elsie's murder is cut and dry. Others, however, have various theories about what really happened. Online theorists have proposed several scenarios in the mysterious case of Elsie Sigel. Some believe that she and Leon Ling initially fled to Washington, but that Ling later murdered her and secretly returned her body to New York. Others have speculated that the body found in the trunk was not Elsie at all, but a look-alike planted to mislead authorities. Another theory suggests Elsie may have died by suicide in Ling's apartment, leaving him to dispose of the body out of fear. There are also doubts about the credibility of Chong Sing's account, with some suspecting he may have played a role in the crime and fabricated his story to avoid prosecution. Because Elsie was a young white woman from a prominent, upper-class family and her alleged relationship involved a Chinese immigrant, the case stirred widespread outrage and media frenzy. The fact that she was related to the well-known Sigel family only intensified public interest. In the aftermath of her death, anti-Chinese sentiment grew more pronounced in New York and beyond, fueled by xenophobic rhetoric and moral panic. Many people even blamed Elsie, accusing her of misconduct for engaging in a forbidden relationship. Despite the intense attention the case received, Leon Ling was never found, and no one was ever held accountable. Her family never received justice, and Elsie Sigel's murder remains officially unsolved. Moving on to the next case. Francesca Antoinette Martinez's. On the evening of March 8, 1982, Susanna Brown attended a Tupperware party near their home in Abilene, Texas. Her daughter, Francesca, stayed at the house of their neighbor, Katie Spivey. When Francesca asked if she could have a sleepover, Kathy, the neighbor, kindly explained that it was a school night and suggested they plan for the weekend instead. After picking up Francesca around 8:30 p.m., Susanna returned home with her. The following morning, around 3:20 a.m., Billy Brown returned home from work. In the darkness, he had no idea what awaited him. As he turned on the light, the first thing he saw was blood. He then discovered his wife, Susanna, lifeless and half hidden under the bed. Passing the living room phone, Billy made his way to the kitchen to call 911. When the officers arrived, they found the body of his 8-year-old stepdaughter, Francesca Antoinette Martinez, inside the house. It was a disturbing discovery, but law enforcement soon noticed something peculiar. Susanna was found lying face up in her bedroom, with a lamp cord still wrapped around her neck. Her daughter, Francesca, had also been strangled with a phone cord, which was cut in 2 places around her neck. Both ligatures used in the slayings were items already found in the house, suggesting that the crime was one of opportunity rather than being premeditated. The choice of strangulation, a violent and intimate method, indicated that the perpetrator was likely familiar with the victims. The medical examiner later revealed that there was male DNA fluid found in Susanna's mouth, though it appeared to have been rinsed off. While this could have been consensual, it could not be definitively linked to the crime. Additionally, there were 3 large lacerations on Susanna's head, indicating that the assailant had struck her with a lamp on the left side of her head before strangling her. Her white V-neck t-shirt had a small tear, and her bra was also damaged. Her blue shorts were found around her ankles, though there was no indication of sexual assault. It was noted that little Francesca had been hiding under the bed. The way her body was found, it appeared the attacker found and dragged her out. Interestingly, Billy told police at the time that the back door was slightly open and a window was open 5 to 6 inches. This looked staged as all the screen doors were intact, in fact, shut. Officers could find no signs of breaking and entering, not even a scratch on the door, and there was nothing missing from the house. For a man struck with such misfortune, Billy seemed unfazed. He was calm, not too upset, and even made inappropriate dad jokes. That is when he turned from the affected loved one to their number one suspect. Investigators first wanted to know more about Susanna Flores Brown. For parents Nick Flores and Frances Soda, Susanna was a Texas girl through and through. Born on October 20th, 1951 in Taylor County, Texas. She had two sisters, a half-sister and a half-brother. Susanna was loved and adored by all. When she was only 16 years old, she fell in love. But the man she chose was 10 years older than her, 26-year-old Freddie Martinez. In 1967, they got married. They were blissfully married for a long time. Freddie was in the Marine Corps, a lance corporal in the U.S. Army. He served in the Vietnam War up until 1973 when the war was over. For Freddie, 1973 would turn out to be an eventful year. In January, as the Paris Peace Accords were signed and troops were withdrawn, Freddie lost his father. But by the end of the year, some light came into his life. On December 11, 1973, he was blessed in the form of little Francesca Antoinette Martinez, his baby girl. Francesca was affectionately known as Cha-Cha because of her fun spirit. She studied at Bonham Elementary School in Abilene. The mother and daughter were happy and loved, but unfortunately, as often happens with teen marriages, their marriage did not work out. The couple separated with Susanna keeping Francesca. Susanna was very busy with her daughter who loved to dance and be involved in just about everything. For a while, it was just the two of them until 1979 when Billy Brown entered their lives. One night at a nightclub, she met a handsome man who took her heart. Billy worked at Nucorp and appeared to be a loving family man. Susanna's sisters noticed the relationship turning sour very quickly. He was a flirt and a womanizer. Linda Flores and Rita Flores Lafferty believed he was cheating on her repeatedly. Susanna tried to attribute it to them being racist, and even explained how he was different and kind, but the sisters still did not like him. Once, they were all out with their dates at a nightclub when Linda came across the couple arguing. She saw Billy push Susanna hard, knocking her down. The couple had been in a relationship for around 3 years. Susanna's family described Billy as controlling and abusive. Susanna was in significant danger from Billy as detailed by her siblings. Richard Flores, Susanna's half-brother, arrived at the crime scene after hearing about the double murder. He immediately noticed that Billy, Susanna's husband, showed no signs of grief or distress. Instead, he was laughing and joking about a bottle of whiskey that Richard had left at the house a week earlier. For Richard, this behavior was a major red flag, as it seemed like Billy was completely detached from the gravity of the situation. Rowan Flores Beats, Susanna's half-sister, recalled that Susanna had expressed reluctance about being intimate with Billy. She mentioned that when she didn't meet his sexual expectations, Billy would become irritable, making snide and rude remarks throughout the day. The news that Susanna wanted to leave Billy, combined with his alleged anger over intimacy issues, provided investigators with a potential motive. Billy claimed that he had been trying to reach Susanna for some time before finally getting through. This led investigators to construct a theory of events. They suggested that when Susanna didn't answer the phone, Billy's feelings of insecurity, jealousy, and control spiraled out of control, resulting in an argument that ultimately escalated into the horrific act. Sarah Sato, a close cousin of Susanna, told investigators that in the summer of 1981, she had taken Susanna to the hospital. Susanna allegedly claimed that she and Billy Brown got into a fight that led to her suffering a miscarriage. The officers strongly believed there was physical abuse in the relationship. Things got heated often, and investigators discovered Susanna had once called the police in November of 1981 afraid of Billy. They had a domestic issue, and allegedly Billy had gone to see another woman. He laughed it off with the police, saying Susanna had poured dirt in his car's gas tank as revenge. Then realizing it was too much and perhaps she crossed the line, she called the police fearing Billy's reaction. Susanna confided in her family that she did not want to marry Billy or live in Texas due to the common law marriage laws. While Susanna and Billy were not married by Texas laws, there was intent to marry, and they were living together for some time, so she was considered his common-law wife. But Susanna's unwillingness was evident. According to court documents, she refused to take his last name until shortly before her end, only doing so under his pressure. A few weeks before her untimely end, Susanna asked her mother for money to change the locks. About a week before the tragedy, she asked her siblings if they could get her a gun. Richard Flores further explained that he knew something nobody else did. Susanna was trying to leave Billy, and he was very upset about it, threatening her. She went to Richard, told him everything, and asked him to help her buy a gun. It was almost as if Susanna knew something, as if she knew what was to come. As investigators zeroed in on Billy, interrogating him, he produced an alibi. He claimed he left for his job at the Newcorp Manufacturing Company at around 4:30 p.m. on March 8th. He clocked in at 5 p.m. and clocked out at 3 a.m. the following morning. Investigators met with his alibi, Josie Landos, a Newcorp employee. It was rumored that Billy Brown was cheating on Susanna with Josie. Josie was cooperative and admitted it would be easy for Billy to slip out of work as the nature of his job allowed him to leave undetected. Other employees, including co-workers named James Coffey and Larry Skiles, confirmed it was highly possible, which further reduced Billy's alibi. Back in 1982, Billy could not be convicted due to lack of evidence. Little did the officers know they, in fact, did possess evidence. It just needed DNA analysis. The case ended up in the unsolved pile until years later in February 2012 when Abilene police asked Billy to come in for an interview. He did not show up or agree to give a DNA sample. 10 years later, on the January 17, 2023, the oral swab from Susanna's mouth was processed, and there was no question. It was Billy. The investigators wanted to speak to Billy. They confronted him outside his house, but he took it very lightly. Billy sat down for a 2-hour interview with the police where he denied all allegations and said he loved his wife. He denied any domestic violence. He also denied any miscarriage, saying Susanna had an abortion in 1981 by her own will. When he denied giving a DNA sample, he was served a warrant, and the DNA sample was taken by force. Billy was reportedly heard saying, "I have signed my own ending." He also claimed that since breaks at work were only 30 minutes long, he could not have made the drive back and forth to their Abilene home to commit the crime since it took 18 minutes to drive one way. He also passionately denied any relations with Susanna, saying he did not enjoy this particular act in bed. He was not aware that the officers had carried out a DNA analysis. It was Billy's bodily fluid in Susanna's mouth. Despite this, he profusely denied having done the deed with Susanna. He also said that it was possible Susanna was cheating on him with her ex at the time, trying to turn the police elsewhere. He said he got fried chicken for dinner, ate with his family, and left for work. When officers asked him why he did not call the police from the living room phone, he did not miss a beat and retorted with, "Did Francesca not have a phone cord around her neck?" There was no question about it. The perpetrator was Billy. Officers then had a clear picture. Billy had calculated the entire thing, slipped out of work, and taken Susanna's life. He then slayed Francesca, leaving no witness behind. On October 27, 2023, just 2 days after speaking with Susanna's sisters, police arrested Billy Brown on charges related to the deaths of Susanna and Francesca. However, he was released on a $200,000 bond the very next day. Billy claimed that his primary concern all these years was the belief that Susanna had been cheating on him with her ex. When reporters attempted to get a statement from him, Billy merely laughed off their questions. Susanna's sister, Linda, emotionally shared her thoughts. "I didn't have my hopes up because it's been so long, and I just thought, there's no way they can solve this. 41 years have passed." For Linda, hearing the news of the arrest was almost unbelievable. "It feels like a dream," she added. A trial date has yet to be set, but after 41 years, Susanna and Francesca may finally get the justice they deserve. Moving on to the next case. Michaela Joy Garrick. Michaela Joy Garrick was born on January 24, 1979, and lived in Hayward, California, with her parents, Rod and Sharon. On the morning of November 19, 1988, Michaela and her friend Katrina left home around 10 a.m. They rode their scooters to the Rainbow Market to buy some food and sodas. After leaving the store, they walked home but completely forgot about the scooters. Eventually, they remembered and returned to the store to retrieve them. Upon arriving, they noticed that one of the scooters was missing. Michaela then spotted it lying in a parking lot near a parked car. As she bent down to pick it up, an unknown man approached, picked her up, and put her into his car. The only witness to Michaela's abduction was Katrina, who ran inside the store to get help. The female clerk immediately called the police, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. 9-year-old Michaela was gone. The search for Michaela was extensive. During the first year, authorities received over 5,000 leads and printed 42 missing person flyers. Despite all the efforts to locate her, Michaela's whereabouts remain unknown. Her case was the first missing child case to be featured on America's Most Wanted in 1988, and was also highlighted on Unsolved Mysteries in the same year. In February 2009, the discovery of J.C. Dugard, who was found alive after being abducted, brought a renewed sense of hope to Michaela's parents. Michaela's mother, Sharon, continues to maintain an active blog dedicated to Michaela and the ongoing search for her. Every year, on the anniversary of her abduction, members of the community gather to place ribbons on the tree next to where the abductor's car was parked. In May 2019, the FBI announced a $10,000 reward for information regarding Michaela's disappearance. As of 2020, Michaela's case remains open, and efforts to locate her continue. Moving on to the next case. Patricia Bernadette Meehan. Patricia Bernadette Meehan was born on November 1, 1951, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She attended college in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where she studied early childhood development, preparing herself for a career in daycare. However, this path did not last long, and she decided to pursue something else. In 1985, she moved to Bozeman, Montana. In Bozeman, Patricia worked on a ranch because of her love for animals. She also took on various odd jobs to support herself. On April 19, 1989, Patricia spoke to her father on the phone and mentioned that she was feeling overwhelmed and really wanted to come home. The following evening, at 8:15 p.m., a woman named Peggy Bueller and her father were traveling west on Montana Highway 200 near Circle, Montana, when they saw a vehicle heading east in the wrong lane. Peggy was able to swerve in time to avoid a head-on collision, but the vehicle still crashed into the car behind hers. That car was driven by off-duty police dispatcher Carol Hates, who fortunately was not injured. Carol then saw a blonde woman emerge from the car that had caused the crash. The blonde woman walked up to Carol and stared at her with an unsettling, vacant gaze, as though she were looking right through her. The woman didn't say a word. Instead, she climbed over a fence and stood there motionless, observing the scene as if she were merely a spectator, not someone who had just been involved in the crash. Peggy then saw the woman walk away into an empty field, where she seemingly disappeared. Peggy then drove to town to reach her phone while her father stayed with Carol. The police soon arrived and the blonde woman was nowhere to be seen. Thanks to her car, she could be identified though. Within 30 minutes, she was identified as Patricia Meehan. The police tried to find her. About a mile from the crash, they found a trail of tennis shoe tracks. Investigators followed the trail until about 3 a.m., until the tracks suddenly stopped. They then decided to inform Patricia's family. Her family then immediately came to Montana to help search. The family distributed over 2,000 missing persons flyers in the area. Local volunteers also started to search using horses and ATVs. Patricia's family even employed a helicopter search. Unfortunately, this was all to no avail. The police tried to determine why Patricia was in the area in the first place. The site of the accident was about 400 miles from where she lived. Investigators believed that Patricia had to have hitchhiked out of the area after the accident. If she stayed on foot, they would have found her. Patricia's mother told police that she was struggling with depression. It was believed early on in the investigation that Patricia also suffered from amnesia because of the crash. There have been over 5,000 reported sightings of Patricia since she disappeared. There are a few credible sightings of Patricia that have been reported. 2 weeks after her disappearance, a police officer in Laverne, Minnesota, claimed to have seen her at a Hardee's restaurant. The officer questioned her, but she refused to provide her name. At first, she said she was from Colorado, then later claimed to be from Israel. The next day, 2 more sightings of Patricia were reported. One was from a waitress in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, who saw Patricia sitting alone in a truck stop diner. On the same day, another waitress in Meadow, South Dakota, reported seeing Patricia with a man who appeared to be in his 30s. Despite these sightings and the ongoing efforts by her family, local volunteers, and law enforcement, no one has been able to determine Patricia Meehan's whereabouts. Moving on to the next case. Ray Grier. Ray Grier was born on October 9, 1945, in Cleveland, Ohio. After earning his law degree, he began his career as a prosecutor. In 1969, he married Barbara Gray, whom he met shortly after graduating from the University of Dayton. In 1978, the couple adopted a baby girl named Lara. 2 years later, in 1980, Ray relocated to Pennsylvania and briefly worked as an assistant district attorney. In 1985, he was elected district attorney of Centre County and went on to be re-elected 4 times. However, in February 2005, he announced he would not seek re-election. Despite his professional success, Ray's personal life faced challenges. He and Barbara divorced in 1991, and although he remarried in 1996, his second marriage ended in February 2001 after just 5 years. A year later, Ray moved in with his girlfriend, Patty Fornicala. Interestingly, Ray's family had already experienced tragedy. Back in May 1996, his older brother vanished from his home in Westchester, Ohio, and was found a week later in the Great Miami River. Authorities ruled his death a suicide. Then, in February 2005, Ray himself went missing. On April 15 at 11:30 a.m., he called Patty Fornicala. This would be the last time anyone heard from him. When Ray didn't come home, Fornicala contacted police to report him missing. The following day, investigators located Ray's red Mini Cooper parked in the lot of an antique store in Lewisburg. Inside the car was his cell phone, but not his laptop, keys, or wallet. There was no signs of foul play. Near his car is a river, so the initial belief was that he took his life in the same manner as his brother. They searched the river, but there was no sign of him. A police fin took sniffer dogs to his car. What they found made them believe instead that Ray got into someone else's car. 2.5 months after he disappeared, fishermen found Ray's laptop. The laptop's hard drive was missing, but that too was found several days later. The police also searched Ray's house before Michaela was still living for any possible leads. On the home computer, they found some interesting searches, such as how to wreck a hard drive, how to fry a hard drive, and water damages to a notebook computer. Police now suspect that Ray may have taken his own life, but they continue to consider other possibilities, including foul play. Given his career as a district attorney, Ray likely made a number of enemies. There's also the chance that he chose to disappear and begin a new life. In fact, there have been several reported sightings of him, the most significant being from a bartender and an off-duty police officer who claimed to have seen Ray watching a baseball game in Wilkes Barre. With so many unanswered questions, speculation continues, and many remain hopeful that Ray will eventually be found. Moving on to the next case. Rita Curran. During the summer of 1971, 24-year-old Rita Curran took a significant step toward independence by moving out of her parents' home into an apartment in Burlington, Vermont. Located on Brooks Avenue, The apartment was shared with 2 other women she had met through an ad in the Burlington Free Press, which sought a part-time roommate for the summer. It seemed like the right fit, so Rita moved in. She worked as a second-grade teacher at Milton Elementary School and had also begun graduate courses at the University of Vermont. To support herself over the summer, she took a job as a maid at the Colonial Motor Inn in South Burlington. Rita was known to be very quiet and shy, but she had recently begun stepping out of her comfort zone by joining a local barbershop quartet. On the night of July 19th, she had been practicing with the group until around 10 p.m. before returning to her apartment. An hour later, her roommates left with one of their boyfriends, Paul Robinson, for a late-night meal. In the early hours of July 20th, 1971, Burlington police were called to the apartment after one of the roommates returned and found Rita's body in the shared bedroom. Authorities determined that she had been beaten, sexually assaulted, and asphyxiated. Investigators discovered clear signs that Rita had fiercely fought back against her attacker, engaging in a violent struggle. Detective Tom Shinnett of the Burlington Police noted that there were no signs of forced entry, suggesting the killer may have entered through an unlocked door or was somehow already inside. Rita appeared to have been preparing for bed when the attack occurred, as her hair was still set in curlers. Her purse, containing cash and all her personal belongings, including her driver's license, was found on the floor just behind the door. This led detectives to rule out robbery as a motive. Paul Robinson, who was dating one of Rita's roommates and had been staying at the apartment during that time, recalled they had only been out for 2 or 3 hours. He mentioned they had invited Rita to join them, but she declined. Robinson said he would never forget the sound of the screams when Rita's roommate discovered her body. The brutal nature of the crime shocked the community. Such violence was virtually unheard of in Burlington, Vermont. "It was a very innocent time," Robinson recalled. "I can't tell you how fast deadbolts flew off the shelves after Rita's slaying." According to Tom Shinnett, Rita received mysterious phone calls before her demise. There was a piece about phone calls that had come in, and some heavy breathing on the phone when he answered it, Shinnett said. Police officers collected evidence from the crime scene that included a single cigarette butt found near her arm. Investigators interviewed Rita's neighbors and roommates. They also investigated hundreds of tips. The 2 roommates and Paul Robinson were all cleared of any involvement in the crime. Among the people questioned were a couple that lived in an apartment 2 floors above Rita's apartment. The husband, William DeRose, who had a criminal record, stated that he was in the apartment with his wife all night and they had not heard or seen anything. A statement confirmed by his wife, Michelle DeRose. Despite the public attention and decades of work by the Burlington Police Department, authorities never charged anyone or made an arrest, and the case went cold. In February 2014, the Burlington Police Department sent for DNA analysis all the evidence collected in the crime scene, including the cigarette butt. According to Burlington's acting police chief, John Murad, the department never stopped seeking justice for the victim's family. While the tests did compile a DNA profile of the person who had smoked the cigarette, it didn't match any DNA in databases compiled by law enforcement agencies across the country, possibly because the person didn't have a felony conviction. By February 2019, Rita's case became Burlington Police Department's oldest case. Rita's sister, Mary Campbell, said the crime still left her shocked and feeling hopeless. "We don't know any more today, 50 years later, than we knew the day of the crime," said Campbell. "As a family, in our prayers, we will never give up our deepest private hope. Rita's story has a home in our family legacy forever. We recognize that over time memories fade, evidence ages, the perpetrator may not be alive or interest in the story wanes. We know Rita's demise did not happen in a vacuum. Someone out there still holds the truth about what happened on the night of July 19, 1971, and they may carry that secret with them to the grave. May God show them mercy." In February 2019, a fresh group of detectives took over the cold case. Detective Lieutenant James Trebe opted for a new approach. Instead of assigning the case to just one investigator, the department assembled a full team of detectives and forensic experts to re-examine the crime as though it had just occurred. They began by retesting all available evidence and submitted a cigarette but for DNA analysis using genetic genealogy, a method that blends DNA testing with traditional genealogical research to trace family connections. A genetic genealogy expert determined that the DNA from the cigarette had strong familial ties to both sides of William Daryou's lineage. Investigators located a living half-brother of Daryou, who agreed to provide a DNA sample, which further supported the match. Additionally, DNA from Rita's torn housecoat was consistent with the cigarette DNA, confirming the link. As the investigation progressed, authorities discovered that Daryou and his wife had left Vermont shortly after the murder and eventually separated. Daryou later relocated to Thailand, where he adopted a monastic lifestyle as a Buddhist monk. Interviewed once again by the police, Daryou's ex-wife, who'd moved to Eugene, Oregon and changed her name, told investigators she had lied about her husband being with her all night in their apartment. Detective Thomas Jeanette, who interviewed her, said he didn't believe she knew her husband had taken Rita's life, but was protecting him because they were newly married and obviously in love, and he had a criminal record. It was established that Daryou, a cigarette smoker, had gotten into an argument with his wife on the evening of July 20th and gone out for a walk to cool off. The next day, he told his wife of 2 weeks to tell police investigating what happened to Rita, that he had never left their apartment, warning her that his past criminal record would unfairly make him a suspect. Burlington detectives also interviewed a San Francisco woman who'd married Daryou in 1974. She told them he had a penchant for sudden outbursts of violence. There were at least 2 instances where he was violent around her, she said. One being when the couple was talking with a female friend and he took out a pocket knife, stabbing the woman in her abdomen for no reason whatsoever. He was arrested, but the woman did not press charges. At another time, she said, when the two of them were having dinner, he suddenly started to strangle her without any apparent reason, at which point she left him. Daryou passed away in 1983 at a San Francisco hotel from a drug overdose, aged 46 years old. On February, investigators announced that they identified William Daryou as the man responsible for taking Rita Curran's life. Rita's parents sadly passed away without ever learning who took their daughter's life. Rita's siblings were able to attend the news conference that was held at Burlington Police Headquarters. Rita's brother, Tom Curran, had this to say. "I don't dwell much on the man who did this," one family member said. "My thoughts are more with Rita and my parents, and everything they endured. I pray to Rita and to my parents." Burlington Police Detective Lieutenant James Trebe, commander of the Detective Services Bureau, stated with certainty, "We are all confident that William Daryou is the person responsible. However, because Daryou died from a drug overdose in a hotel room, he will never face justice, though the case is now officially closed." Former U.S. Senator Patrick Leahy, who served as Chittenden County State's attorney at the time of Rita's murder and had gone to the crime scene himself, was present at the press conference. When asked if he ever believed the case would be solved, he admitted, "I always hoped it would be. But after 20, 30, even 40 years, I doubted it. It was a terrible thing." Investigators are now also exploring whether Daryou may have been connected to additional crimes. Moving on to the next case. Susan Walsh. Susan Walsh was born on February 18, 1960. From early on, she dreamed of becoming a poet. She went on to study English and writing at William Patterson University, where she also worked as a journalist for the campus newspaper. To help cover her tuition costs, Susan spent a period working as an exotic dancer and stripper. She also faced challenges with substance abuse and alcoholism. Despite these difficulties, she earned her bachelor's degree in 1998. After graduation, she pursued a career writing for engineering and business magazines. Susan later married Mark Walsh, the brother of musician Joe Walsh. The next year in 1985, the couple had one son named David. On July 16, 1996, Susan left her apartment complex in Nutley, New Jersey. She shared the apartment with her son. By then, she and Mark had problems and weren't married anymore. He lived in the apartment below them. Susan left her home to run errands and make a phone call at a payphone across the street, leaving her son in his father's care. She was never seen again, and no trace of her has ever been found. At the time, her friends feared she may have relapsed after maintaining 11 years of sobriety. Police quickly ruled out her husband, Mark Walsh, as a suspect in her disappearance. Speculation soon arose that her vanishing might be linked to her work as an investigative journalist. She had been researching a story that aimed to expose the Russian mafia's illegal operations. However, investigators were never able to establish a connection between the article and her disappearance. A February 2006 piece in the New York Post revealed that Susan had told the former boyfriend she was being stalked by another ex. The same article reported that Mark Walsh had declined to let police conduct forensic testing in their home. Her case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries in 1997. Although police continue to follow some leads, the case remains unresolved to this day. Moving on to the next case. Tara Calico. Tara Calico was born in February 1969 in Berlin, New Mexico. A highly motivated individual, she excelled in school, enjoyed riding her bike every morning, and played tennis. Tara and her mother, Patty Doll, would often ride together, but Patty stopped joining her when she felt that a motorist was stalking them. On September 20, 1988, Tara left home just after 9 a.m. for her usual bike ride. Her mother suggested she take pepper spray for protection, but Tara refused. However, Tara did tell her mother that if she wasn't home by noon, Patty should come pick her up because she had plans to play tennis with her boyfriend afterward. Most of Tara's ride was along New Mexico State Road 47. By noon, when Tara had not returned, Patty drove the route in search of her. After failing to find Tara, she contacted the police. Officers also searched the entire stretch of the road but found no trace of her. When they started questioning witnesses, some said that they saw her riding on her bike, but that is all. Then pieces of Tara, Sony Walkman, and cassette tape were later discovered along the road. Tara's mom believed that she might have dropped them to mark her trail. Not long after, the police finally got a lead. Witnesses came forward claiming they saw a light-colored pickup truck, possibly a 1953 Ford for camper shell that followed closely behind Tara. The witnesses said that Tara was unaware of the car because she was listening to her music. This was a solid lead and something for the police to go on. But unfortunately, it led nowhere and the case grew cold. Then 9 months after Tara disappeared, on June 15, 1989, a Polaroid photo of an unidentified woman and a boy was found in a parking lot of a convenience store in Port St. Joe, Florida. The woman had found the photo said it was in the parking space where a white windowless Toyota cargo van had been parked when she arrived at the store. The woman who called in reported that the van was driven by a man with a mustache, appearing to be in his late 20s. Police set up roadblocks in an attempt to intercept the vehicle, but unfortunately, their efforts were unsuccessful, and the van was never seen again. A photo of the woman and a boy was circulated in an attempt to identify them. Tara's family friends contacted her mother, asking if she thought it could be Tara. When Patty saw the image, she became convinced that it was her daughter. She pointed out that the woman in the photo had a scar identical to one Tara had. As for the boy, I will cover his details in a separate video. Scotland Yard reviewed the photo and confirmed that the woman was indeed Tara. However, the Los Alamos National Laboratory examined it and disagreed. The FBI also analyzed the photo, but their results were inconclusive. It is still not known today who the young woman in the photo is and if it is actually Tara. Then in February 2009, 20 years after the Polaroid picture was found, 2 more pictures were discovered. This is the first one. When Tara's mom looked at this picture, she also believed it was Tara. In this picture, Tara's mom was not sure about this one. It is widely believed that this last picture was a prank. In February 2008, Valencia County Sheriff Rene Rivera announced that he received information that 2 teenagers accidentally hit Tara with a truck, panicked, and then took her life. Rivera stated that he knew the names of the boys, but he did not have enough evidence to make a case. In November 2013, a police report was filed. Another witness came forward and wanted to tell police what he saw regarding the disappearance of Tara. The man was nearing the end of his life, and he wanted to come clean. He claimed that back in 1988, he was friends with two troublemakers. One day when they were playing in a basement, his two friends talked about how they ended the life of Tara. The two of them said that they accidentally hit Tara with a truck, but she then told them she will make sure they end up in jail. They panicked, so they took her life and hid her behind a bush. When the search for Tara began, she was reportedly moved to the basement, which aligned with details Sheriff Rene Rivera had provided a few years earlier, though with more specifics. Later that year, another man came forward, claiming that one of the teenagers involved had confessed to him. Interestingly, one of the two teenagers was identified as Lawrence Romero Jr., the son of Sheriff Lawrence Romero Sr. You would think that with this confession, the case would be easier to solve, but unfortunately, it remains closed and is no longer being investigated. Many people believe that Sheriff Rene Rivera may be covering for Sheriff Lawrence Romero and his son, who could have been involved. Regardless, Lawrence Romero Jr. has since passed away and can no longer be questioned. This case remains incredibly frustrating, as it seems solvable if it were given the attention it deserves. Patty and her husband passed away without ever knowing what happened to their daughter. Patty stayed in the same house for 15 years after Tara disappeared, holding on to the hope that one day her daughter would return. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing cold cases with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Cold Case Mystique for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any cases you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video, and remember, the search for truth never stops.